Hey beauties, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is just a chit-chatty get ready with me where I am spilling all the tea. I'm gonna fill you in on all of the house updates and share some of our adventures from the Thanksgiving holiday. And I'm using some of my favorite products that are available at Sephora since today kicks off their Gifts for All event. It starts today, it goes through December 10th, so no stress, you have plenty of time to build the perfect shopping cart because it is a one-time use coupon, but you get 20% off and it's good for all beauty insiders. I will make sure to link all of the products down below in the description box. I will also tag them directly to the video. We're starting with skincare today because I've been testing out these new products from Sephora. These are from McCreen Actives. I have their moisturizer and the eye cream. I've been using these for the past few weeks now. I often rotate between my moisturizers in the morning, and I recently finished a few. I finished my Lancome, I finished a Magic Cream from Charlotte Tilbury. So this is what I've been using, and now it's number one in the rotation. And I really like it. It has a ton of botanicals, it's very active, so maybe not best for anyone with really sensitive skin. It's called the High Performance Face Cream, and the texture reminds me a little bit of Creme de la Mer, in that you really have to work it into the skin. So I kind of rub it in, and if I see that it starts to look sort of white and pasty, then I start to press. And this is the High Performance Eye Cream, again, very rich and buttery, so you really don't need a lot of product, especially if you're using it during the day. They're super hydrating with a lot of botanicals, antioxidants, a lot of really great stuff for the skin. As a primer, I pulled out my Westman Atelier Liquid Super Loaded Highlighter. I have Peau de Rosé. It has a really pretty light pink sheen to it. And we're going in with a matte foundation, so I think this will look really nice beneath it. I'm trying to find different ways to use this because it was really expensive, and it does look nice if you just tap it directly on the cheek. I need to explore other uses for it, otherwise I'm afraid it will just sit in the drawer. Hopefully by now everybody's feeling nice and settled back to normal after the Thanksgiving holiday break. We met my parents in Las Vegas and we drove to Zion for a couple days, which was so beautiful, but it was definitely an eventful vacation. We left on Sunday and we had a morning flight, so we had to get up at 6 a.m. We were traveling with little Jazzy, so we wanted to make sure we got there nice and early. We always bring the dogs anytime we travel for Thanksgiving. And with everything going on with that respiratory illness, I felt really glad that we did decide to bring her with us. I would have been paranoid the entire trip if we had put her up in a pet hotel or something. Everything was really smooth when we went to the airport. We had plenty of time to get through security and get to our gate. And the plan was, once we arrived in Las Vegas, we had to wait for a few hours for my parents to land, and then we were gonna rent a car and drive up together. I don't know what happened, but I got an email as soon as we landed in Las Vegas saying that you have a bag delayed. And we thought for a second, well, maybe it was my husband's because he had to do that last minute check. He wanted to bring it on the plane with him, but then they just put it directly beneath the plane. But no, it was actually my bag. And I had no luggage for the first couple of days, and it was really sad and depressing. We were sitting in the airport and we talked to the people at the baggage claim area, and they just let us know it happens. The bag was on a later flight and they would have no problem driving it the 3 hours to Zion National Park. I guess this has happened to them before. She reassured us that I would have the bag no problem later that night. Later that night came. No bag. My saving grace is that I packed my toothbrush in my carry-on, so at least I had my toothbrush, but I didn't have any of my toiletries. I couldn't wash my face properly. I didn't have any of my clothes, no clean underwear, no clean socks, nothing to my name. And it took them 2 days to deliver the bag. I'm just happy that it showed up. By the time I was waiting and trying to track the bag, when it arrived, I didn't care. I was just happy to have my stuff. It's one of those unfortunate risks that you take anytime you travel and you check a bag. And of course my husband's saying, see, this is why I never check a bag. If we're going to a cold weather climate, I need sweaters, I need boots, I need options. So I didn't really have a choice. I kind of had to check my bag. And I was burned, but it made it to the hotel a day before we left. So thankfully everything arrived. My missing bag ended up being one of the smaller hiccups of the trip. So I was just taking it easy, not getting stressed or upset about it whatsoever. We had bigger problems. If any of you have ever been lucky enough to visit Zion National Park, and then you know how beautiful it is. It was a gorgeous drive. It was a little bit dark when we were driving in the first day, but as we were exploring the park, it is just incredible. We had full sunshine, blue skies, cool temperatures. It did get a little bit cold in the evening, but for the most part, it was just crisp, refreshing, invigorating. I don't think I've spent that much time outside in years. It is also at a very high elevation, especially where we were staying. And you could feel it as we were driving up. Everybody's ears were popping because you're driving up through the mountains. But if your body is not used to the level of elevation, it can hit you really hard. And of course, all of us, we were flying in from different cities, but we were coming from sea level. You might already know where this story is going, but on the drive up, I noticed my mom was starting to be kind of quiet. And when we got to the hotel and we were checking in, she was starting to be a little bit more vocal that she was not feeling very good. She was really having trouble breathing. She felt tightness in her chest. She couldn't stand for long periods of time. She was thirsty but felt nauseous. She tried to lay down. She couldn't get comfortable. And we tried to even just walk downstairs to the lobby, go to the car, maybe drive to get her whatever she needed, and she couldn't even walk down the hall. She really felt like she was having an emergency. So I called 911. We got the paramedics out there. She was really struggling at this point, and we were all panicked. Here we had all had a really early morning, a very long, stressful travel day. So we're all kind of thinking, well, is it just the travel day? Are you just exhausted? Are you hungry? Are you dehydrated? What is going on? When the paramedics turned up, they ran some tests and they found some irregularities with her heart measurements. So they did end up taking her to the local emergency room. It was about 30 minutes away. My dad was under a lot of stress at this point. So I told him I would drive. So Gary stayed back with the dogs and I drove my dad to the emergency room to meet my mom. And I think we stayed there for a few hours while they ran additional tests. And it turned out that everything was okay. And they kind of chalked it up to you want to be careful, but it's most likely that she got elevation sickness. Altitude sickness, not elevation sickness. I knew that sounded funny. I have zero experience with this. I think my husband mentioned that he had a trip one time where he experienced something similar, but it hit her so hard and we were all so panicked and freaked out having to spend the first night at the hospital. But they did end up sending her home and just saying, self-monitor how you're feeling, use common sense, don't try to go on a long hike or run a marathon the next day. And it turns out you can actually buy canisters of oxygen when you're up in the mountains. So my husband went and got a bunch of cans of oxygen just so we would have it on hand in case anything else happened. She ended up feeling much better the rest of the trip. Thank goodness. By the next morning, she was like a completely different person. We still took it easy and we just did the driving tour through the park, which was pleasant. Everybody was happy to just sit in the car and enjoy the sights. We spent the second half of the trip in Las Vegas, Lake Las Vegas to be exact, and we ended up having some really great food. We did a little gambling, which was fun. My dad loves to play blackjack, so one of the nights I sat at the table with him, and I didn't think you could do this, but he was basically telling me every single move to make, and I won $100, so I was really happy. We ate at Hell's Kitchen on Thanksgiving night. They didn't have a traditional Thanksgiving dinner, but we still had some really great food. We ate at Martha Stewart's The Bedford the following night, and actually everyone agreed that The Bedford was much better than Hell's Kitchen. The food at Martha Stewart's restaurant was amazing. The ambiance was great, the service was great. So highly recommend checking it out. It's at the Paris Hotel if anybody's in Vegas, near Vegas, visiting Vegas. But we stayed in Lake Las Vegas, which is about 40 minutes away. It's its own little community, kind of an oasis. It's definitely a hidden gem. If you're looking to party and get into the nightlife, stay on the Strip. If you're looking to get away, if you prefer more outdoorsy activities, they have golf courses everywhere. Then Lake Las Vegas is sort of fun. It's more of a retirement community, so it's very quiet for Vegas. But it was exactly what we needed, and I think it matched the first half of the trip perfectly. So everyone felt like we really had more of a relaxing vacation. I pulled out my Gucci bronzer. This has been a long time favorite, and it's very pricey. So if anyone is picking it up, better to get your 20% off at Sephora. So one thing that we took care of while we were away is we ended up having the house tented for termites. That's right, we had termites. Owning our home for the past 6 months has felt like one giant lesson. It has been incredibly humbling. Humbling beyond anything I could have ever imagined before we bought the house. I always used to think of us as strong, independent, hardworking, intelligent adults. You realize how dumb you really are and that you know nothing about the world when you buy your first house. You just don't know what you don't know. We didn't need to know any of these things. So we've been learning a lot, and it's been a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, I feel incredibly grateful. I think we both realize that no matter what, we are still incredibly blessed to be in the position that we could finally afford to purchase a home, and to do it ourselves is amazing. And I do feel really proud. Nothing that could happen would ever take away from that. I never want to get to a mindset where I'm feeling sorry for myself, or I'm feeling ungrateful, or I feel like I'm complaining. But with the laundry list of things that has happened to us, which I'm going to share with you, I think you will probably agree by the end of this video that we do have at least a little wiggle room to complain, just a little bit. If you watched any of my earlier vlogs over the summer, right after we bought the house, you know that within the first week of moving in, we ended up having a leak. And it was one of those situations where our roof, we have a bunch of trees, and the leaves and the sticks from the trees fall on the roof. They clog the gutter can't drain properly, so whenever we have just a basic everyday Florida afternoon rainstorm, if the water cannot drain properly through the gutters, it finds a way. It does what water does, and this is what was told to us. It's not necessarily that the roof has a big issue, but it's water, and if it's just sitting on the roof, it's going to find its way into the home. And so in our second bedroom, and I just happened to walk in one day and see this, we had a full-on deluge, a waterfall coming in through the room. It was all over the floor. It destroyed one of the walls. We ended up having to rip out the wall. I think we ended up ripping out 2 walls, having to reinstall a window. We had to just basically redo 2 walls in that bedroom. And it was an absolute nightmare while this was happening. It was incredibly loud and disruptive, of course. It took a really long time. The men we had working in here kind of destroyed the house every single day. There was mud and debris and concrete and just stuff all over the floor. Jazzy was eating stuff and then getting sick, and I was just so exhausted from the drilling all day, and then at night I would just have to clean and scrub everything. There was dust everywhere. I really felt like I had a bit of PTSD when that project was done. Not long after that, we did have bees removed because we were told that we really just could not have them. I've seen so many TikTok videos of the beekeeper in Texas that I have kind of a whimsical idea of bees. I just thought it was sort of cute having bees at the house. It's not cute at all, apparently. It's really bad. You just can't have them in your home. God forbid a pet, a child, a person gets stung by a bee on our property. And at that time, we had so many different contractors and people coming to help us get the house situated that it was just too risky. We ended up meeting the previous owners, not the owners that we bought the house from, who were only here a couple years, and I don't think they really did much to it, but the previous owners who had been in the house for I think 20 years, and they are the ones who did the expansion, which was incredible. And they were telling us all about the house, and we were telling them about the leak, and they were like, oh yeah, of course. We told all of that to the people that we sold it to. We gave them a giant binder with lists of contractors, names, everything you needed to know about the house. Did they give you that binder? And my husband and I were just like, no, we got zero information from them. Good to know that they did have all of this information and they knew all of the little quirks of the house. It was so great getting to catch up with them. They were telling us about all of their memories, how they raised children in the house. They really didn't want to leave, but they ended up relocating to a different state. You could tell how much they really loved this home and how they put their heart into the home. They put so much thought and effort into planning out the expansion. And so it was really great getting to meet them and then, of course, swap stories since we had still only been here, I think, maybe a couple months at that point. It was nice being able to ask them questions and get insight since they have the lived experience of being here for decades and really loving and enjoying the house. So it also gave me a little hope and I felt a bit inspired, like, yes, eventually once we learn all of the intricacies and we get this home ownership thing down, we will probably really love living here. So once we had the bees removed, then we decided it would probably be smart to go ahead and have the trees trimmed because that's something that the previous owners had done regularly. It hadn't been done in a long time, and the trees are the reason we were having roof problems and the leak. So that's what we did. We found somebody to come trim the trees. We actually talked to quite a few people about having the tree removed, but in our area, it's so unlikely. They love the trees here. The trees are #1 priority and houses and humans come next. So that might be a battle we decide to take on later on. But for now, we just had the trees trimmed. And while we were having the trees trimmed, they said, hey, you have a lot of broken tiles on your roof. You might want to get that looked at. So we did. As the responsible adults that we have become, we thought we were getting this thing down. We had the trees trimmed, we had the tiles fixed, the roof was fixed. We shouldn't have any other issues. We were wrong. We did have a calm 2 months, I think, a couple weeks that were really calm, nothing bad happened. And I started to think, okay, I don't want to say anything out loud, but this is kind of nice. Nothing bad is happening. We're not really having any progress. We're not making any updates to the home, but we are living and existing in peace and quiet until one day, and I just happened to be home. Both times we had a leak, and yes, it happened twice. Very lucky. I happened to be home. The first time I just happened to open the door. I was trying to go to the bathroom, happened to open the door into the bedroom and saw, oh no, there's water all over the floor. This time, I actually had an event or a lunch to go to, and I decided, you know what, I have too much work to do. I'm going to skip it. I'm going to stay home and edit. So I'm in this room, and it's a really rainy day, but just a normal Florida rain, nothing out of the ordinary. And I start hearing this really realistic water sound. And I'm thinking, well, I know it's raining. There are windows in this room, but I'm not hearing outside rain. I'm hearing inside rain. And it sounds like there is water gushing in the house somewhere. But in my head, I'm like, well, but no, that's crazy. That's crazy talk. I'm imagining that because that could never happen. We just spent a ton of money getting the roof fixed. We spent a ton of money trimming the tree. We don't have all of the debris clogging the gutters anymore. This could not possibly happen. This is all going through my head in about 5 seconds. So I quickly check the bedroom door, and sure enough, there's a little flap where I guess the drywall had been soaked and just sort of flapped over, and it's creating a waterfall effect, and there's just rainwater gushing into the bedroom. For the second time in less than 6 months, I could not believe what I was seeing. I honestly feel like I went into a bit of shock because it was like the trauma, and I know trauma sounds really dramatic, but truly that sense of everything that we went through the first time, what a horrible experience that was, is like I'm seeing flashbacks in my head, and I just could not recognize what my eyes were seeing. My brain was telling me it wasn't possible, but my eyes were seeing that we did in fact have a leak in the exact same spot. After everything that we had done to avoid this problem, I immediately called my husband, panicked, just on the verge of instant tears, but also just what do I do? I threw on a shower cap, got on the terrace, climbed on the roof. I think I threw on some kitchen gloves, and so dangerous. Do not recommend this. But I'm like crawling on the roof down to where I know the gutter gets clogged, and I'm like pulling out handfuls of leaves and sticks. But it wasn't just leaves and sticks, it was broken tiles. What had happened is when we had the roof fixed so that we wouldn't have a leak, all of the broken tile debris from the work that they were doing ended up getting into the gutter. Broken tiles along with the sticks and the leaves and the dirt. It just created basically a cement blockage. There was zero water getting through. When I first looked at it, I could see the water, the waves on top of our little drain area because the water wasn't able to penetrate. I was never so angry. So I'm feverishly in the middle of a rainstorm with a shower cap on my head in sweats, just getting piles and piles of sticks and leaves, and I'm just flinging it off the roof, trying to make way for the water. And sure enough, it was like a toilet, whoosh, just swooshed down as soon as the water was able to go down the drain, go down the gutter the way it's supposed to. That's what they're designed for. And my husband came home, I think, as soon as I got back inside, and you can only imagine the words exchanged. I mean, I was never so angry, frustrated, in shock, panic, the works. Just an emotional wreck. It was a nightmare. Even talking about it now, it just gets me so heated. I feel myself. I feel like the temperature is rising. Because I married such an incredibly patient man, being the kind husband that he is, he did not panic. He was like stone cold problem solver hat on, and he ended up calling a gutter guy who came out the next day. We have all new gutters installed. They have the little mesh top so that now they can't get clogged. All these things that you don't think about these things when you have never had a house before. And I still don't feel safe because I've been on the roof since then, and I've noticed that the mesh is great, but what happens is we still have the leaves and the sticks and the dirt from the trees that fall on the roof, and it just sits on top of the mesh and it creates a blockage there. So I'm not sure this is a problem we're ever really going to solve. And thinking back on the conversations that we had with the previous owner, they did say it had happened to them multiple times. She hated the tree. She was always fighting with the city to get the tree removed. And her kids were older, and they just sort of knew when a rainstorm was coming, like everyone would check the roof. So this is probably going to be something ongoing. I typically wait until a sunny day and I go out with a blower and I just blow all of the leaves and the sticks away, and it's very fast, efficient, and as long as we keep the roof clean, I don't think we will have a leak again. And it wasn't as bad as it was the first time, so we just have one little area of damage. I can't even bring myself to look in that room. We haven't fixed it yet. We will eventually. Mentally, I'm not ready to even fix the room. But inside, I don't think we are going to have to pull out the entire wall. I'm hoping. Fingers crossed we are not going to have to take out the wall again. If so, I'm doing it myself. I'm not paying anybody else to do it. I'm not paying somebody to come destroy my house. I will just watch some YouTube videos and learn how to do it myself. I was inspired to pull out one of my Pat McGrath Labs palettes because I did say we are no longer purchasing these full price. So if you can get 20% off, I actually would wait for a deeper discount. But I haven't touched this one in a while, and it was my first and still one of my favorites. This is, I can never find the name, Bronze Seduction, I believe. I always want to call it Bronze Goddess, but I know that's wrong. I think this is Bronze Seduction. Fluffy brush, and I'm starting right here. This is just going to go in the crease. I started a list in the Notes app on my phone of all of the things that have gone wrong with the house because I cannot even remember everything that has happened. So that was a couple weeks ago. We have since recovered mentally and emotionally from that. But we also have had some bug problems. And in Florida, that is somewhat to be expected. I noticed little flying insects that were coming out of the AC vent. The AC vent was like pelting them towards my head, so I couldn't avoid them. They were ending up all over my desk, and I thought that is so weird. I don't even know what these bugs are. They're not ants. They look kind of like ants, but they have these long wings. But I think they're coming out of the AC vent. So I just called an AC vent cleaner. I'm thinking maybe there's a nest or something in the AC unit that needs to be removed. And it's funny to think back on that call now because I asked the guy, I was like, so the reason I'm calling is because there's bugs coming out of the AC unit. Is that normal? And he's like, no. Do you have an infestation? And I'm like, Well, that's why I'm calling you. You have to tell me these things. I have no idea. I can't get up there. So they sent over the nicest guy. We had just the best experience with them, and they ended up cleaning all of our AC units, all of the AC ducts, which helps to get rid of, I think, pet dander, old smells, things like that. So not a bad thing. I'm glad we did it. He had to turn the AC unit off in order to service, I think, one of the rooms. A few days later, we noticed it was really warm in the back of the house, and it turns out the AC unit had frozen, so it wasn't working properly. So not only did we have to get the vents cleaned, then we had issues with the AC not working. It was really hot and miserable for a couple days. We were able to figure out what was wrong and fix it instead of replacing the entire AC unit, thank goodness. After doing some Google searches upon further research, I realized that those little bugs were not in fact coming from the AC unit. They were termites, live termites. And this is another one of those issues that we had when the house was first inspected. We had the house inspected for termites as well, and they found termites. So the previous owner was supposed to treat for termites, and I think they did, but they didn't tent the house. They just did a couple spot treatments. Looking back, in hindsight, I wish we had tented before we even moved in. It would have made things probably a little bit easier. But we did decide to go ahead and tent because if you're seeing live active termites, at that point, you probably already have the live colony. They've invaded at that point. At first, I think we were both pretty upset about it. We didn't think we should have to tent. But after talking to our friends, it seems to be pretty common. It's definitely common in this area. It's common with older homes. We have original wood flooring in the front of the house. We basically live in a mix between a jungle and a swamp. So bugs are going to exist. I mean, we have to coexist to a certain extent, but you don't want termites damaging your house. So at least we've tented. No signs of them yet. It's only been a couple days, but now we have a really nice plan in place, so hopefully it won't be an issue in the future. I will say at least the termites were small, and they weren't really flying and flapping all over the place. They were sort of confined to the front room. I was really the only one dealing with them. But around the same time we dealt with the air conditioning acting funny, we started to have a roach infestation. That is something that I cannot handle. I can handle spiders. I can handle a lot of different types of bugs, but when it comes to roaches, I feel like I have a phobia against them. They just make my skin crawl, and we had several of them getting in the house. So then we had to call an exterminator to come. We've treated that problem. We survived, but there was a weekend that I swear it felt like we were fighting terror because there were so many of them getting in one particular area of the house where there are a lot of water pipes. Out of all of the problems that we've dealt with so far, that to me was the very worst. My husband and I have an agreement. If there's a spider, I have to kill it because he hates them. If there's a roach, he has to kill it because I hate them. I cannot look at them. I can't be within 50 feet of them. I've spared you a lot of the ugly, dirty details because I've managed to make it through the majority of my list, and I'm still doing eyeshadow. But any of the homeowners out there, you have to tell me, does this sound like an abnormal experience, or is this just part of life now? It honestly hasn't been all negative. Of course, we love our space. We are starting to do a bit more decorating, which is really exciting. I had the curtains hemmed. I cannot wait to have the new curtains hung in the living room. I think it's going to be beautiful. I found some incredible pieces on sale through Facebook Marketplace. I've also splurged on a couple pieces that I really love. But we're getting to a point where it is starting to come together. We're nowhere close to finished, but I can see the vision. And that makes me really happy because for a long time I was looking around like, okay, what else is going wrong? And when you're in that mindset where you're sort of defensive, trying to put out fires left and right, you can't really get excited or have a creative, inspired juices flowing to decorate the house. I did this rose gold shimmer on the lid, and with a smaller brush, I'm picking up the chocolate. This is going to go a little bit in the outer V and along the outer lash line. on the top. The biggest piece of advice, or the most popular piece of advice that you all shared with me when I first announced that we had purchased a home, was to take our time decorating. And I really took that to heart, because you're right. I mean, it's not something that you want to rush. Furniture is very expensive. You want to make sure if you're getting something, you really like it. But I think I allowed that advice to kind of slow me down too much. And then I started to get frustrated and feel sort of anxious looking around and feeling like, okay, everything's bare, nothing's complete. It's a bit of a balancing act, right? You don't want to rush into anything, but at the same time, you have to make some decisions. You really have to start committing to some pieces, commit to a theme. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. It doesn't get done. I have gained so much respect for interior designers. I love scrolling Pinterest and Instagram and looking at beautiful homes, but it is so difficult to put them together. It truly is an art. It's a science. I've thought about hiring somebody virtually. I've found a few people who do virtual consultations that aren't that expensive to help with the front room, because that is my favorite room. I think because it's my favorite room, the pressure is just too much. I feel like I'm afraid to mess it up. And because it's not decorated with any furniture, I can't really decorate for the holidays. But I don't really know how normal that is. I mean, we never had a decorator. My mom, I don't think, has ever hired a decorator. She's always just furnished everything herself. I'm curious if anybody has any advice or experience, if you would say, go for it, don't go for it. As you can see, I quickly filled in my eyebrows, I did eyeliner, I curled my lashes, did mascara, so eyes are now done. You didn't really miss anything. I did take a little bit of this top shade right here and I popped it into the inner tear duct area. I also highlighted my brow bone. I wasn't sure whether I should keep the lip neutral or do a pop of color. I'm kind of feeling like a pop of color since we are in the holiday season. I really like this Summer Fridays lip butter. This is the Lip Butter Balm in Cherry. But I'm going to use this It's Cherry lip liner first from Sephora. This works wonderful with just about every red lipstick I have. So I'll throw on a red lip. It's the season. We can't wear red lips just once. I've basically caught you up on everything that's been going on. So the latest thing, there is a hair on there. I knew I could feel it. I couldn't see it, but there's a tiny hair on my lip liner. There we go. So the latest thing that we're dealing with, when we came back from our trip, my husband was so helpful. We were able to get the house back to normal relatively quickly. And we had an extra day since we weren't flying home just to open up the house. We had an extra day to let the house air out. So we felt really comfortable coming inside. And I did have a couple dead roach bodies to vacuum. And we basically just cleaned everything, vacuumed the floors, wiped down all of the surfaces, threw all of the bedding in the laundry, threw all of the dishes in the dishwasher. We really only had to worry about food or anything that you ingest. We had to double bag, and they came and they inspected and made sure everything was bagged properly. But the house, other than that, the house looked exactly the same when we got here. So we did a big grocery shop since we had no groceries. And then the next day, my husband went to get ice cream after dinner, and he said, this ice cream isn't frozen. In my head, I'm thinking, please do not be something else. And sure enough, the refrigerator is not working. So that is the latest on the laundry list of things that have gone wrong. It is an older machine, so we knew at some point we would need to replace it. It's just not the best timing. Thankfully, it's not completely broken. It's just not cooling properly. Last night, we went to an appliance store, and I think we picked out the right one, but we didn't have all of the measurements we need. Again, we're rookies. Rookie mistake to not take the tape measurements with us. That is next on my to-do list. It's top of the to-do list is to go ahead and order a brand new refrigerator freezer. And then I am going to top that off with my Cherry Lip Butter Balm from Summer Fridays. That way I have a nice, juicy, hydrated red lip. I added just a little more lip liner to give the lips a little bit more color. So now they're a little bit more raspberry, and I was in desperate need of dry shampoo, so I quickly did a little hair zhuzhing off camera. I am now covered in dry shampoo, but that's okay. It brought my hair back to life, and this is the finished makeup look for the day. What do you think? Overall, I must say I am very happy with the way it turned out. Today's video was more of a rant, less about the makeup, but these are all tried and true products that I absolutely love and I'm always using. They're very easy for me to integrate into my makeup routine. So that does it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching and for listening to what has been going on. Life has truly felt chaotic for the last few months. For the last, I would say, 8 to 9 weeks, it has felt like one thing after another. I did not leave to get the refrigerator in time, so that is still on my list of things to do. If any of you watching have your own horror stories, let me know that I am not alone here down below in the comment section. We will keep the conversation going there. As always, I will be linking everything mentioned. Everything on my face will be listed down below in the description box for your convenience. And for more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell.